I don't think that creators pop on this platform to talk about Japan in a malicious way, usually. However, content creators in the backdrop of the algorithm and the audience and malicious players and 5-second short videos or just really, really small bits of content about Japan lead the audience into a myopic understanding of Japanese culture that has translated into really toxic things. Let's get into this. I read a book before coming to Japan that had nothing to do with Japan, but there was an entire chapter of this book making fun of Eastern and Western ideas being fundamentally separate from each other. And even though it's a really hardlining book, it is a comedy in many ways. So I found the passages in this book that talked about Eastern and Western thought purely genius, to be honest. And ironically, we can sum up this imperialistic colonial aspect of one thought being better than the other as Orientalism. This is Orientalism. Orientalism is this idea from the West that the East is this exotic, mysterious place of inferiority. Orientalism is what you can use to describe something that dehumanizes fundamentally those who are not Western. And there has been many, many works done about Orientalism and the superiority complex of Western thought. However, these ideas, they go both ways. There are those in the East who believe that their thoughts or ideas or whatever are inferior to those of the West, and such is life, such is society, and such is the world. And we can all point and laugh at this superiority complex that exists throughout history. And while creators like Oriental Pearl directly verbalize this superiority-inferiority complex, most content on Japan is really subtle. And it goes into how we don't quite understand each other from around the world, whether it's due to language or culture. There is a gap of understanding, and I believe people like Chris and other creators, they want to bridge that gap. But the way that the audience internalizes it is not necessarily the way in which is intended to be seen. And unfortunately, YouTubers of all kinds, especially when generalizing in any way, become part of a huge, huge problem, which is not bridging any gaps, but in fact, furthering them. The truth is that whether you are a non-Japanese person making content about Japan or a Japanese person making content about Japan in English, you are still looking through a myopic lens, which is their own personal one. And while there are so many content creators on the platform of YouTube specifically that talk about Japan and give their own perspective, they are slaves to an algorithm that will feed people what they want to see, not what their experience is, not what the truth is, what people would like to see about a culture. So in a weird way, the audience, the algorithm, and the content creators are all shaping this idea of Japan into that which is only seeing a small portion of Japan and not fundamentally as a whole the Japanese, I guess, existence. Because the Japanese existence as a whole in general cannot be quantified. Now, there are very popular YouTube channels on Japan that are few. Frankly, few. And some of the loudest voices in the room are Chris, for example. I think he might be, like I said in my previous video, the loudest voice in the room. And because of that, people are very upset with him because he shows a lens of Japan that is his experience. And I don't think it's fair to be angry with somebody because he's not a person of color. I think it's fine to give that experience, that what he sees from his lens. That's not a bad thing. And clearly it's a popular thing that he has shown us. He is showing people not just what they want to see, but in such a way that does express a totality. I think that's why people are drawn to him. So I'm not bashing him. However, there are so many other experiences, and in this binary of the audience wanting to see Japan in one way or the other, the real story, the real totality gets fucking lost. And you might think to yourself, okay, well, Chris is one angle. Chris is just, this British guy in Japan. I'm going to try to seek others' experiences, or maybe even going to a Japanese person's perspective. However, you also cannot rely on that. For example, if somebody were to knock on your neighbor's door and ask your neighbor what life is like where you live, does that guy speak for you? Does that guy speak for the entirety of your community or even your entire country? Of course not. And the same applies for those who speak about Japan. And I urge the audience to watch out very, very carefully for any person who generalizes Japan in any way or suggests that they speak for Japan. And I'm specifically going to call out this person for doing such a thing. The loudest voices in the room are those with the biggest following. And how do they get the biggest following? By showing up to the algorithm and feeding the hogs. And I think somebody like Sora the Troll is just a jokester, just a prankster, though he does tend to speak for all of Japan often, like Japanese people this or foreigners this, in these binaries that are just meant for our dumb little ape brain to be like, oh yeah, generalize, that's great. And Sora the Troll specifically, I think he's just joking. I don't think people actually take him seriously. So somebody saying something that you want them to hear doesn't make them the majority. And it gets even worse because now you're going to tell me, well, Tori, I know the majority of Japan because I watch street interviews. There's no question that all the content that I'm talking about is entertaining. And I want to make that very clear. I entertain myself with these. But street interviews like Takahashi on the street, oh my god, I'm so sorry if I butchered that. He not only, are interviews like these highly curated, they are one person's perspective. Once again, we are looking at the myopic form of somebody's thoughts on something. And once again, they don't express the entirety of the whole. And you cannot expect somebody on camera, faces fully on camera, to be giving all of their real thoughts. Let's be so for real. There, specifically with street interviews, there's like so many videos out there of Japanese men being like, yeah, cheating is normal. Or Japanese women going, yeah, I expect my guy to cheat. Like, if I went to Italy right now, to the same spot, knowing full well who's going to be there, I get the same exact videos, but in Italian. If you go to a nightlife spot and you interview nightlife people, you're gonna get nightlife responses. And when you pretend like that is the entirety of 125 million people, you've got to be out of your mind. Don't get me wrong. There have been so many videos where I've seen, like, sometimes I feel insecure. I'm like, oh, do Japanese like my stupid curly hair? I look at these interviews and some of them are like, oh no, I love foreigners that do this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, good. Okay. Japanese people like me. But again, it's like when in your own country, you think about it. If one person was like, yeah, I like this and that, do they speak for you? Do they speak for people that you know? No, they don't. It's just one person's opinion. Guys, why are we putting so much weight on one or two people's opinions? Whether they're Japanese or not, what are we doing? And I hope that the one thing that you take away from this video, if nothing else, is that these street interviews are fake. They are curated. Maybe not all of these videos, but certainly a harsh majority that I've seen recently are clearly curated. Clearly they met up had a time, met up on the street to make it look like it was random, but it's not random. The editor has full control to slip whatever, cut whatever, to make things look like they're together, if that makes sense. Like, you can cut up what people say and make them, do whatever they want. It's like reality TV, guys. So in conclusion, any YouTuber, any person that is giving their experience about Japan, that is showcasing you what they love about Japan, or just different sides of Japan, whatever it is when it comes to Japan, or any culture, any different culture, it's not an issue. It's not a problem fundamentally. However, it is important for the audience to understand that you will not be seeing the entirety of Japan. You need to watch out for grifters and people that make assumptions about the entirety of Japan and feed this algorithmic monster that's like painting Japan in one certain light, because it is so toxic. Chris in his recent video talks about how he has gotten more hate recently than any other time on YouTube.
You to go and watch them. I will say I've felt sort of disheartened this year in general about so many things, about the state of the world, and this is sort of to the side of this issue. As you may know, I've been living here over a decade now, about 13 years, and I've been extremely lucky to be here, and I've always tried to show Japan in a fair and balanced way, particularly more rural areas that I love, which I've been lucky to call home. And more I'm seeing comments and discourse online that I'm just a foreign guy living in Japan. I don't understand the culture. I'm a foreign guy exploiting Japan. And I've had that claim thrown at me more in the last 12 months than in the last 12 years combined. To the point, it has sort of sucked the energy out of me a bit and made me wonder, what am I doing?
And I think that there is a real problem, and I've seen it mainly online. Like, it doesn't necessarily translate in the real life in Japan from my experience, of people just absolutely shitting on people based off of the color of their skin, their nationality, whatever. And it's really fucking gross. It's really disgusting. And it's wrong. It was wrong way back when. It's wrong today. It'll always be wrong. I mean, there are literally reporters that have been in this country for 40 plus fucking years, and they are getting shit on daily, having disgusting comments come their way. And I have no idea what the hell compels people to think that this should be normal in any way. There is an interesting paradox going on, right? Because there's this idea of grifting and like, don't follow a grifter. But also in this space that Chris talks about, where you have to have a thumbnail that is, you know, like this, or titles that are like this, and feed the algorithm the slop that it wants. How can you tell who's grifting or not? How can you tell someone's real intention? There is so much manipulation online, and it's impossible to feed through. So I would just say for anybody watching, and I hope that I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence by saying this, be careful online. Yay! And specifically when it comes to Japan, yeah, there's gonna be a separation when it comes to language barrier and, you know, communication. And in some ways, those who understand Japanese or can bridge these gaps, it's their responsibility to do it in a manner that is good. But that's not always going to be the case. And at the end of the day, we are all just ice cream. All of us fundamentally across the world, we are ice cream. We are all just different flavors of ice cream. We may look different, we may taste different, but underneath we are fucking ice cream. And I don't think that that's a very complicated thing to understand. And as the world understands and learns, and we travel this planet more so than ever, we understand that human beings are fucking ice cream with different flavors. It's not hard, guys. I just want to express the flavor to you, you know? Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I make content about Japan myself and my own perspective. And it's a hard time. It's rough in these streets, but I came to Japan seeking knowledge, and, you know, I've been traveling the world since I was 18 years old. And I've always wanted to share it. I've had so many experiences that I wish that I had shared. I wish I had done this sooner. So I really appreciate everybody for being here. And thank you so much for your attention in the last video. That was really amazing. I am eternally grateful for all of the experiences that I've had this past year and a half. And so many, I look forward to so many experiences in the future, and again, to share them with you guys. So yeah, it's been really great. It's been really fun. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye. This is Chubbs, my manager. He also says goodbye. He's telling me this video is too long. I apologize. Goodbye. See you. Bye.